What's going on, everyone? This is Daniel with DBS Design, and we're in for a really exciting video, especially if you're in architecture and you plan on getting licensed. So just to start things off, this is specifically for the licensing body called NCARB, which is the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards. So if you're outside of, I believe, the United States and Canada, I believe Canada uses similar licensing body. You may have different licensing requirements, and maybe in a future video I can look into that and cover some of the study resources for that. But specifically, we are going to focus on this, and without further ado, let's hop into the video. A question I get from many people: what did you use when you were studying for the exam? Once again, if you haven't seen this video about me passing the AREs and passing it on my first try, I haven't failed any of the exam, which, praise God, that is a miracle. Check out this video, open it in another tab. Maybe pause this video, watch this video, or watch it after. I want to talk a little bit about some of the resources that I've used, and then start to get into what resources are available and other tools that can help supplement your study. So just in terms of resources, like reading materials specifically, I use the Architectural Handbook of Professional Practice, I use Ballast, I use Building Construction Illustrated, Problem Seeking, Site Planning and Design, that handbook, and I use the AIA Contracts, AIA Code of Ethics, International Building Codes. I just went online. I had to sign up for that, and I refer to the ADA documents as well. Of course, there's other things that I've used, which we're going to start to go into that, especially things I use to practice the questions, etc. We'll talk about that. But those were my primary resources. To kind of outline what my process was like, for the first 3 exams, I just used Architectural Handbook, Ballast, and here and there I would look up a certain topic online and that kind of stuff. But those were what I primarily used. Programming and analysis, I used a little bit of Amber books. I think I used one topic on site, I believe, but everything else was also just Ballast and Architectural Handbook. I think like 95% of what I studied was just straight from the textbooks. PPD, which is Project Planning and Design, and the second one, PDD, which is Project Design and Documentation. Those 2 exams, I use Amber books for that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in detail. These were some of the resources I've used, and I have used other resources to supplement my practice questions and to reinforce my knowledge on the things I covered in the textbooks. And we're going to get into that in a moment. But what are some of the more popular materials out there, right? First things first, I want us to kind of get into the baseline. What does NCARB recommend you to use as a test taker to study for this exam? Let's take a look. Okay, here we go. If you open the ARE Handbook, and you can find this on NCARB's website, or you could just Google that. If you open the ARE Handbook, you will see, starting from page 111, they have a reference matrix, which shows you about 40 or so materials that you can use to study for the ARE. On page 112, we start to get into some of these materials in the reference matrix. And so they break it down to the different exams. We have PCM, Practice Management, PJM, Project Management, PA, Programming and Analysis, PPD, PDD, and CE, which stands for Construction Evaluation. And so they highlighted what resource will be relevant for what exam, and you can kind of see that here. And maybe most of you watching this, you're already familiar with this, so I won't spend too much time on this. I am going to leave a link for this in the description. If you want to just go and look at it and you want to see some of the resources that are recommended by NCARB, which is the licensing body once again, you can take a look at it. Hello everyone, this is Daniel recording from the future as I am editing this video. I just have a quick couple of disclaimers to share with each of you. So something I'm going to say in this video is that NCARB has a matrix of materials, and you don't necessarily have to study all those materials in order to pass the exam. I just want to make something clear. Although in a literal sense, you can pass the exam without going through all those materials, that statement in no way is a claim to say that those materials are irrelevant or it's not important or anything like that. And so NCARB has an ARE reference matrix. While the study materials are not where they directly get their questions from, those reference materials are what most closely aligns with the concept and competency that is tested on the NCARB exam. So I want to let you all know those materials are great. Those materials are important. And it's really up to you whether you go through a few of them or you choose to go through most of them, or if you choose to follow some other recommendation that's given in this video. But I just want to clarify that those materials are closely aligned with the concept and the competencies that you will be tested on this exam. NCARB develops the AREs using test specifications that are based on practice analysis and psychometric standards. And then NCARB goes through this process where they review the questions, and they have people in the air who study the science of psychometry, and they edit the questions, and then they test new questions. Like when you take your exams, some of the questions are not counted towards the final score because it's a test question, right? It's like a question that is just kind of testing how do people answer these questions. So in summary, what I'm saying is, while I said you don't have to read it to pass, and while that may be true, keep in mind that those resources does reflect the way that NCARB is going to test you and the types of questions that they're going to ask you. So with that disclaimer out of the way, we're going to continue with the video. Honestly, I don't know if all these things are necessary. It's overwhelming, and I feel like it's rather confusing. Let's be honest. But there's quite a bit of things which I will also say are very important. So the question is, as a test taker, how do you know what's relevant? How do you know what's important? That's the stressful part. And so I want to suggest something to you. Yes, you can look at this, and yes, you can follow it. And I especially would suggest, you see the ones that have a star, right? You see this? The ones that have a star. I believe, and someone correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong, my understanding is that these are like, oh, this is like absolutely important. You need to have this resource for this exam. Once again, the question is still there. Like, how do you know what to study, right? With all these different resources, how do you know what to study? What's relevant? And so this leads me to the first resource that I'm going to recommend. And honestly, I will say it's one of the best tools you can have for studying for this exam. And that is Discredit. And if you look here, I have a copy of the book, Discredit. It's probably a little bit hard to see here. Maybe it's not in focus. But they even put a number here. I don't know if the number there is like the copy. Mine says 2,776. Maybe that's the number of copies they've sold. Who knows? But Discredit is actually having a back to school sale. So if you are watching this video, and I think it's still in effect, I'm not entirely sure. But anyways, high level, what is Discredit? What is it about? Discredit is a comprehensive book. It's been written by 2 architects, and I believe the story is they passed their exams in 6 months. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. And they basically kind of compiled their notes and created this resource material that tells you exactly what you need to study for each exam and what resource to use and what you should read within each resource. It's actually really, really, really helpful. So you see here they have something, they said exam outline for every test, which is super, super helpful. And then they have some study sheets. So for different categories, which some categories can, like for example, structures could be related to construction evaluation, could be related for PPD and PDD, right? And you have all these different categories which fall into one or more exams. I actually am looking at the physical book right now, and of course I cannot necessarily show you a picture. You will have to buy the book, out of respect for the people who have put this book together. But I will kind of like narrate a little bit of what's inside the book, right? So for example, for one exam, PCM, which was the first exam I took, they gave you a 4-week schedule. This is what you read in week 1. This is what you read in week 2. And the great thing is that it's so comprehensive. It goes straight to the point. Some section says, hey, you just need to skim this chapter, but this chapter you could read in more detail, which I'm telling you something takes a load of stress off of you. You know, I don't know if you're anything like me, but when it comes to studying, especially for an exam so broad, having specific points telling me what to study helps me to be more relaxed, and the more relaxed I am, the more I can retain and remember the information that's being given in the lecture. So Discredit is a great resource. I highly recommend it. And by the way, any of these resources I'm sharing with you, I am not sponsored. I'm not affiliated. I doubt these people even know who I am. But I am just sharing this with you because it was a blessing. It was a huge blessing to me. And they also have their own notes, as mentioned before, for different categories. And their notes is fantastic. I go and I study, and then I take what I studied and compare it to their notes. And I can see, I actually missed this point, and I can just compare back and forth. It's fantastic. So once again, this alone helped me for my first few exams. Now, if you're not convinced of whether or not you should buy it, and by the way, you may be wondering, how much is the book? That's a great question. It's $75, but it's worth every penny. I think I got it for like 70 or something, or I don't know, 60, 65. There might have been a sale, but once again, there is that back to school sale right here, so make sure you get your hands on this. And if you're not sold on it yet, I'll tell you 2 quick stories. I know someone, and I'm not going to use names. She's been in the field for so long. She's so good. She's like a director of interiors. And she said, hey, you know something, Daniel? I think I'm going to also get my architectural license. And I said, great. And she's like, what do you recommend? And I just pointed her to this book. And, you know, she has a whole family, her whole life that really fights for her attention, fighting for her attention. But this has been a huge blessing to her. And she has been knocking out some exams. Another coworker, very senior as well, same thing, recommended the book, knocked out some exams. This one guy I know, he had taken, I think, programming analysis 3 times, I think, and failed 3 times or 4 times. It's 3 or 4 times. And he's like, Daniel, I give up. What can I do? And I shared this book with him, and he told me literally, when I came to this book, I pretended like I'm starting from scratch. Granted, he had some knowledge because he took the test many times before. But as you know, if you fail the test 3 times in a year, calendar year, you have to wait another year to take it. But he told me this made the difference, and he passed. And guess what? He is a licensed architect. So I highly recommend get your hand on Discredit. And yes, I know. You may be a person where, hey, I hate reading. I don't like reading. Or I just want to watch a video. And listen, that's good. And we're going to talk more about that a little bit later. Some cool tools and techniques you can use to kind of supplement your reading if you hate reading or you're a slow reader. There are some cool tools I'm going to suggest to you in just a moment. But this is the first thing I want to recommend, Discredit. And Discredit also kind of have a matrix as well, where they tell you different materials that you can look at and you can study. I have the book in my hand right here. And here's the thing. With Discredit, they kind of narrow it down. Like, these are the materials which not only help them to be successful, but other people they know. And so they narrow down that over 40 material into a simple matrix. You can see here is 1 page, a simple matrix. So get your hands on Discredit. It's going to help be a game changer in terms of, you remember in this other video, in terms of setting your schedule, right? Now listen, just because it says 1 week, get this done, if you know you're a slow reader, right? Say 2 weeks, right? Or 3 weeks. And then based on this, you can even schedule your exam. This helps you to stay on track to schedule your exam as well. Now, to answer the point I brought up earlier, right? Let's say you're saying, Daniel, I don't have time to sit and read. Or Daniel, I'm such a slow reader. Or, it's hard for me to focus. Now, if you direct your attention to my screen, right here, I highly recommend using Speechify. So Speechify, compared to some other programs, I find to be really, really good at narrating and reading. And with their AI enhanced tools, is something that makes the voice sounds a little bit more human and less robotic. And even how they pronounce certain words is a lot clearer. Now, granted, it depends on the PDF that you use and you upload on the website, which I'll talk a little bit about how that works in a moment. But it depends on the PDF you use. But honestly, it's just such an amazing tool. So I definitely would recommend it. Now, the thing is with Speechify, all you really need to do is to sign up. And they have a 7-day free trial. So if you're a little bit hesitant and you're not so sure, hey, is this good for me? Just sign up for a free trial and give it a try and see if you'd like it, right? They do charge, I think they only have annual fees, and it's about like maybe $100 something dollars. But trust me, you're going to fly through so many exams in just a year. It's going to be totally worth it. This, once again, I don't know the owner of Speechify, but this helped me sometimes when I'm too busy to just sit down and look at a textbook, so I would have it narrated to me. And you can also change the speed of the narration so it can narrate it a little bit quicker. So Speechify is a great tool to have. You can see some of the textbooks, the PDF that I uploaded to have on this website. So just upload the PDF and boom, the AI, I guess the software just basically scans the whole PDF and it reads it. Now, granted, depending on where you get your PDF, sometimes one PDF may be a little bit more wonkier, than others. So what I recommend if you're going to use Ballast or Architectural Handbook, I don't necessarily know where to find a free PDF online per se, but I did get PDFs from my architectural firm that I worked at. So all you need to do is talk to whoever is at your office. I'm assuming you're working, or if you're a student and you're trying to maybe touch on preparing for your AREs, although you can't necessarily take it in school. I think you need to graduate. You need to show your eligibility to test. I have a video on how to sign up for eligibility. I'm adding it to the top corner right here. But what I want to suggest to you is that you speak to your professors, right? Speak to your boss. Say, hey, do you have like a PDF of Architectural Handbook? Do you have a PDF of Ballast? And I'm certain that somewhere you can find a PDF. But if you're kind of really diligent and you just want to have your own copy, or hey, I want a physical copy, you can buy the book. It's kind of expensive, I think. I'm actually curious, how expensive is it? So that textbook is like $169. Ballast, that's $100 I see for the ARE 5s, and it has mock exams. So, I mean, it's up to you. The choice is yours. Do what works best for you. So, Speechify is a pretty good tool that you can use to supplement your studying process if you don't have time to read and you just want to upload all your PDFs on the website. Let's talk about Architectural Handbook. Let's talk about Ballast. Let's talk about the AIA Contracts. And then after we talk about these resources, we're going to get into supplementary resources to help with your reading, with the testing, practice tests, and all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about that. So first and foremost, I mean, to be quite honest with you all, talking about Architectural Handbook, you'll definitely see very, very mixed reviews online. Some people will say that Architectural Handbook is a little bit wordy and it's fluff and all that kind of stuff. But I will say something, don't sleep on Architectural Handbook. Yes, it's wordy. Yes, it's long. All those things that you heard is kind of true, to be quite honest. But I will say Architectural Handbook is one of the best resources, especially for practice management and project management. Because these, by the way, are written by people who are in the practice, who do these things for a living. And I know it's kind of more like the idealized scenario of, running a business and making contracts and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of studying and what you need to know for this exam, I think Architectural Handbook is a fantastic resource. By the way, you could just kind of take a quick listen at how the Speechify sound.
The International Green Construction Code, a backgrounder accompanying this article, has more detail on codes relating to sustainable design. In 1999, the National Fire Protection Association announced its intent to develop a model building code.
Highly recommend Architectural Handbook for those exams. I think it really dives nicely into the practice, why we do what we do, or the ideal reason behind why we should do what we do. So definitely recommend Architectural Handbook of Professional Practice. And Ballast is pretty similar. Ballast is a little bit more concise, more straight to the point. And I think Ballast really did a great job, especially for the more technical exams, for even CE, PPD, PDD, PA. Ballast was a pretty good resource. Ballast is something you want to use on all your exams, and I think whatever Ballast is missing, especially for the practice management and project management, Architectural Handbook does a great job of covering that. But I would say Architectural Handbook, use it for the first 3 exam. And what do I mean by first 3? I mean PCM, PJM, and construction evaluation. Definitely use it for that. Ballast, I think, is great for all 6 exams, but definitely more so for PA, PPD, and PDD. But yeah, Ballast and Architectural Handbook, these resources are great. I just know a lot of people who have used it and passed. Of course, there's people who use it and have not passed, but that could be for many reasons. And for me, this has been very foundational in all of my studies, especially for 4 out of 6 of my exams, which I'll talk more about that towards the end of the video. When it comes to AIA contracts, you can get a free copy of AIA Contracts. Just go on Google, AIA Contract Sample. If you just go on Google, you can find samples for all the AIA contracts, the different ones. This one just so happens to be the A101 contract between owner and contractor. And you can find it, the B101, which is owner and architect. You can find all the different AIA contracts just by looking at it online. You can also go to the AIA website directly, which has a list of all current AIA contract. And yeah, the A series, B series, C, and so on and so forth. Listen, without a shadow of a doubt, you need to get the AIA contracts. There's no way you're going to take any of these tests without looking at the AIA contract. And they will show up on every exam. The first 3 exam, and once again, when I say first 3, keep in mind I kind of have this order in my head: PCM, PJM, CE, PA, PPD, and PDD. So for the first 3 exams that I just listed in that list, contracts are super important, right? One is about how to run a practice. One is about running a project. And the other one is about risk and responsibilities on site during construction, and the relationship between the owner, architect, how does the architect also work with the contractor, and how the contractor works with the owner, and who is responsible for what. Talks about substantial completion. You get the A201, I believe, as well. And so contracts are important. You definitely want to review it and print it out. Also, Code of Ethics, especially for PCM, print that out. I remember getting questions on the different canons, and so you're gonna have to know it. You're going to have to know it. print that out. You can also find that on AIA's website as well. In a little bit, I'm going to tell you about a good supplementary resource to also read with this, or listen rather, to help you to better understand contracts. Because contracts is something that no one likes, no one enjoys. But keep in mind, at the time of recording of this video, contracts are updated every 10 years. The last time the contracts were updated were 2017, so the next update will be 2027. And I think it's going to roll out, like the questions are going to start to change around maybe the following year or maybe 18 months later. So keep that in mind. Now, you have resources like IBC, super important. IBC is so important. And especially for the last, I would say PA, PPD, and PDD, you got to know your stuff. You got to know your codes. To get access to the full version, I think I had to subscribe for like $10 or something. It's affordable. So I definitely recommend going through this. There's no way that you can't know this. Because here's the thing. If you say, oh, I could just like use the search button in the exams. But the thing is, they will ask you certain questions where it might be slightly ambiguous in this sense that if you know where to look, you're more likely to find the correct answer or find the information faster and not get the wrong answer. Let's just say it that way. So IBC is very important. Also, the ADA document, you can look that up. ADA document. So this should be the ADA design PDF. Let me see, is this it? Kind of, sort of looks like it. I think this is it. Someone, of course, correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong, but I'm going to add the links for these things, all these resources in the description. Problem Seeking was a book that my office provided. This book is so important, especially for your PA exam, which many people have told me that PA is the hardest. That may not have been your experience, or it may not be the experience of many others. But the thing is with PA, it's very, very broad. And I think that's what made it very challenging for some people. But this is a good book. It helps you, it basically talks a lot about programming. It talks a lot about how architects plan spaces and the relationships of one space to the other, the relationships of placing a building on a site to its site itself. So Problem Seeking is a great book, and I think there are similar books recommended on NCARB's website, but this is the one that I use, and so I recommend this. And I think that this book helped me a lot, especially with those site questions on the exam. So get your hand on a copy of Problem Seeking, or maybe your office or maybe your professor may have a copy of this book. Now, with all that said, we're going to start to get into some of the supplementary study materials. Going back to the AIA Contracts, we have this great resource by a person named Michael Hanahan. I hope I said that right. You can just type in Schiff Hardin lectures for the AIA Contracts. This guy was formerly an architectural student. He was in architecture, but he didn't really practice architecture. He decided to just go into law. But what I love about the Schiff Hardin lectures, he has the ability to explain this contract as if, you know, he's talking to a child, making a child understand it. And so I highly recommend going to his lectures. You can find his lectures on YouTube as well. But I'm going to include this link in the description below. Definitely take each contract. And what I did personally, I remember, I just highlighted. As he was narrating, I read through it with him. I highlighted. I wrote his notes. And he kind of summarizes each of the different clauses and that kind of stuff. So he summarizes it. And and this helped me to understand the contracts a lot better. And the way that he explained it, I think was in such a way where I could even memorize it. You can start from lecture number 6. It says the B101 AIA, and this is 2017. So once again, please keep this in mind. As of 2027, the contracts will be amended. It's every 10 years. However, this is not necessarily the case for every single contract, but this is going to be amended, and maybe in the following year or 18 months, you can expect to see ARE questions update to reflect the new contracts. So I don't know if Hardin is going to make a new set of lectures by then, but as of this recording in 2025, you have like another solid 2 years to really use this and take advantage of it. So I advise you to get started on your studying ASAP. But yes, this is a great tool. This I recommend. This is just my advice, by the way. I recommend listening to Schiff Harding's lecture 3 times. You're going to say, Daniel, you're crazy. Look at this. This thing is like one of this is like 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours. But listen to me. Listen to it multiple times. So you're going to, the lectures that are relevant for you are the B101, Part 1 and Part 2. Then you are going to look at the A201, and yeah, that's divided into 3 parts. What is missing is it C41? Kind of forgetting my numbers. Correct me if I'm wrong. That contract, you're going to have to look at it on your own, but it's very short, very straight to the point. And A101 is also not here. But A101, you don't necessarily need this until you get to CE. But the B101 you need for every single exam, especially the first 3 as I mentioned. And of course the C401 and the A201 especially will be important for project management, but also it will be important for construction evaluation, CE. Now to start to get into other resources that I use personally to test myself, the number 1 website I definitely recommend is arequestions.com. You probably heard of her. She's amazing. Her name is Elif. I'm probably butchering it. Sorry, Elif, if you're watching this question, I apologize. And I hope we could do a video together one day. Elif is amazing. She put together her own questions for the AREs. And as of the recording of this video, she has every exam except for construction and evaluation. So she has made exam bundles for each of them. You can see them right here and the prices. So $100 for PCM and PJM, and $100 for PPD and PDD. And I think there are discount codes online. I remember using one and I got like $5 or $10 off. So you can buy all 5 for $225, or you can just get a smaller bundle, however you prefer. The thing is, keep in mind that her website is kind of more of a license, if that makes sense. So all the exams that you purchase, you'll have access to all the questions for about 1 year. And here's the thing. If you do not pass your exams within that time frame for the specific bundle you purchase and you need additional time, no worries. She has this area where she puts her email. You could just email her and say, hey, hit me up, and just ask for an extension. And it works. She'll give you an extension. And she has a bunch of cool content. She started to make video courses as well. I did not use any of her video courses personally. I just mainly used her practice questions, and those have been a tremendous blessing. I don't know, maybe in a separate video, I can actually maybe go through some of the free practice questions. I don't want to do any of the paid content, of course, and I could just share it with you all to show you how good this exam is. But you don't really even have to take my word for it. She has this page filled with testimonials, and there's a bunch of people on the NCARB forums who also have come across her materials. And honestly, for me, I will say personally, this made a difference between me passing and failing my exams, I believe, in many ways. Her questions were so ridiculously hard, and I loved her for it, because that just encouraged me to study these things which I'm not familiar with. And the things I studied ended up somehow in some way being relevant to some of the content for the actual exams, even though I don't think I had some questions that were as difficult or something. I should definitely leave a review on her website, to be quite honest. But yeah, I definitely recommend this. I could just quickly show you how it looks like. if I just go on my enrollments here, I think all my PCM things, and yeah, you can see my score. I failed pretty miserably, guys. But I'm telling you, it's worth it after you go through it and you see the content. Now, another website that I use, and this was actually even provided by my work, was this website called Designer Hacks. So you can see over here, I'm going to go to my enrolled courses. Just got to block this out. And they have these bundles for each exam. They have mock exams. They have the way they kind of format it, if I remember correctly, they have like a actual exam that you can take, full question. This is for PJM. So they have quizzes, pop quizzes, 10 questions, 25 questions, or you can take the full length test. Now, Designer Hacks, I'm going to say, will not prepare you for the tests. Designer Hacks is kind of one of those things where, you know, as I'm studying, so the way I did my studying, I would read first and get through a good chunk of my study content before I start testing myself. I know some people read and test simultaneously, completely up to you. But for me, I kind of got through most of my content, and Designer Hacks served as a way for me to kind of test, like, am I getting the basics? If I am failing Designer Hacks miserably, that means I have to do a lot more reading, or I need to add additional reading material or look up certain content. But Designer Hacks kind of was a way for me to test the waters. If I'm getting 70, 80s, or 90s or on Designer Hacks, it does not necessarily mean at all that I'm ready for the exam, but it does tell me that I'm at a reasonable place where I am getting the basics. So I definitely recommend Designer Hacks because it is so affordable. Maybe your office provides it. Otherwise, I believe if I check here, they have these different courses for, I think, $39 each, if I remember correctly. $39, and they may have like a discount if you buy everything together. Not so sure if that's the case. Once again, this was provided by my office, but I definitely recommend using the Designer Hacks as a quick way to kind of lightly test your knowledge. As you may know, Ballast also has practice exams as well, but I actually probably use the Ballast practice exam only for PCM, which is practice management. I did not use the practice exams for any of the other tests. I heard very mixed reviews that the practice exam, which for me was actually pretty hard, but I heard some people say it's very different from the test. The types of questions doesn't really align with the test. Although I also heard other people say it's great. Ballast is wonderful. So I don't really know what to say about that. I won't speak much on it. But listen, the more exams you can get your hands on, the better. That's all I can say. The more you can get your hands on, the better it will be for you. By the way, there was one study material I didn't quite cover, and that is site planning and design. I'm going to just show that to you really quickly. Sorry that I forgot this. Should have been an earlier section. It's super dense, but I'm telling you, you probably don't need to take a detailed amount of notes. But really just read through it. Some sections you could probably skim through it, but especially for the PA exams, and I think PA and PPD, anything relating to site, which I think a lot of site questions were in those two exams, especially PA. This book is a valuable resource. It's so valuable, and I think he goes into a lot of detail. Your tests will probably not go into this much detail, trust me on that. But I would say that's a good resource, especially for those two exams. So those were some materials, ARE questions, Designer Hacks I used to supplement my studying. But remember earlier, I mentioned that I use Amber Books for my last two exams. Now, why did I use Amber Books for my last two exams? The honest reason was I had some things going on in my personal life. And so I didn't necessarily have time to just sit down and read through the textbook for each of the exams, PPD and PDD. I wanted to find a way to study for everything at once. And I managed to convince my firm to pay for Amber Books because it's actually pretty pricey, to be honest. And I just went through the whole course. I took a lot of notes. And that's pretty much what I needed for the last 2 exams. But the thing is, I also tried Black Spectacles. I tried Black Spectacles, and what I love about Black Spectacles, and I'm just going to also pull up their website over here, Black Spectacles. And Black Spectacles, I think, is in partnership with discredit, so you might see Black Spectacles in the study routine. Black Spectacles is not necessary or mandatory, it's just kind of like to supplement it. And I'm not going to personally say anything about is Amber better than Black Spectacles. That's not what I'm going to do here. But rather, I'm going to say something I like about Black Spectacles. Their practice exams are great. If you've already studied the content for the exam, definitely add their practice exam because their format resembles NCARB so similarly. And so that can also help you to get more comfortable with the NCARB interface. So the thing is, I would say the explanations for the questions is a little bit more to be desired. ARE questions have some of the best explanations for the questions. And Amber books, the explanation for the questions are good. And the thing that Michael, who is the one who narrates Amber books, he does a pretty good job of really just helping you to understand concepts so that no matter what the questions may be that you get, you'll probably do a good job. I would say that with maybe some updates to the ARE 5, this is the current one that we're taking as of the recording of and release of this video. I think there were some things that I found that were missing from Amber books, but I think the flashcards in Amber books really covered a lot of things which maybe the videos didn't quite go over. This is some of the pricings, by the way. If you're thinking about getting Black Spectacles, it's a little bit pricey. It's better if your office could sponsor you for Black Spectacles if you are working in an office that has the finance to do so. Amber Book has like a very similar price range. Let me go back here. Go for individuals. Let's say ARE Prep. And you go on Enroll Now. Oh, look at this. For a limited time, you have access for $255 a month, which is a lot cheaper than it normally is. Something else that's really interesting about Amber Books, which I kind of respect about them, if you go on their website, they also have a study matrix. They kind of tell you about other resources. So don't take my word for it. You see, I said Architect's Handbook of Professional Practice is a great book. You must have it. I've heard good things about Hyperfine. I personally never used it. I've heard mixed reviews, but that's not me saying personally whether I think it's a good resource or not. I definitely recommend looking at it. Schiff Hardin's lectures. Listen, guys, you got to get on those lectures. And of course, NCARB has a series of other resources, and the NCARB Handbook kind of tells you, gives you like a set of practice questions for each exam, which is also something I should have mentioned. The ARE Handbook is pretty good. And for each exam, when I'm going to start a new section, I just go on it. I kind of read like how the questions are divided. We can even look at it quickly together. If we go here, you see here it kind of tells you the division for each exams, how many questions are in each test, and the timing for each test for the appointment and the test duration. This is on page 8 of the ARE handbooks. But if you go for section by section, let's actually just go through 2 sections together. So this one is practice management. So it kind of breaks down, hey, this you can expect about this many question to be on business operation, this many question to be on risk and finances and business development. And so it gives you a matrix of how the exam typically spreads out its questions. So you know where to kind of put more of your focus on what type of questions when you're studying as well. So the ARE handbook is an invaluable resource. There was an older version of the ARE 5 handbook, which I think I have somewhere on my computer, which also had some practice questions as well. It's a shorter document. I don't know if it's here. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to say anything that's incorrect. but I don't know if it's actually in this version or this updated version of the ARE Handbook. But I definitely saw it on the old one. And it had some practice questions, and those are also super helpful. But going back to Amber Books, they kind of have this page, which I'll also include this link, which kind of tells you about different resources, which are very, very good. And you see here they talk about all the different contracts, etc. Now, here's the main point I want to capitalize. It says put it all together with Amber Book. I think this is the best way to study, right? The best way to study is not just, hey, I'm only using Amber Book. Hey, I'm only using Black Spectacles. And in some cases, I think just studying from the textbook, you should be fine if you take good notes, you understand the concepts, etc. But you know, we are architects, right? We are visual people. And so having a video, going in on YouTube, seeing a video that explains something is also great. And I think having all those things together will ultimately lead to your success. So I think what Amber Books is saying here is completely true. If you go through the reading materials and you also supplement it with the videos, I think this is the best way to ensure your success. So the videos, Amber Books, is great for talking about the concepts, and it's about helping you to explain to understand what the concepts are for the tests. With your textbook reading, you get into more specifics, especially with textbooks like Ballast. You get into more specifics, and when you take the concepts and the specifics and you overlap them together, I think this is the best recipe for success. So combine these things together, right? And use the NCARB forums to your advantage. They also have additional resources that you can look at. So if you feel like, hey, I'm reading these resources in Descripts, but I feel like I want to know more about the concept. Or, of course, you can go on NCARB's website and look at the whole list of resources that they recommend and select the resource that is more in accordance to what you're looking to study. I also personally use YouTube videos, or I even use ChatGPT to generate questions on specific topics. I remember for PA, I was studying FAR, and for some reason, because me at my office, I usually work on construction document sets, design development sets, and so I was really having a hard time grasping FAR, but having these questions generated, and be careful with ChatGPT, they can get the questions wrong, so always fact check the questions itself as well. But ChatGPT helped me to generate questions in order to really ensure that I'm understanding a concept. So, in summary, I recommend the following materials. Get your hand on a copy of Descripts. And Descripts is going to be an excellent way to be structured and organized in terms of your timeline for studying, and it tells you what to study and what sections to look at for each study material. And of course, some of the study materials which Descripts recommend is Ballast, Architectural Handbook, also recommends Problem Seeking, Building Construction Illustrated, and so many others, Site Planning and Design, etc., etc. And also, I recommend AIA Contracts, the AIA Code of Ethics, IBC, ADA, and also get your hands on materials that can help, assist you in your studying, right? Schiff Hardin lectures, right? I recommend the Speechify if reading through textbooks is something that's very laborious for you. Get a Speechify subscription, which is, for me, something that helped tremendously. Also, get your hands on as many practice tests and practice questions as possible. You could use whatever you want, but my recommendations are ARE questions. I recommend Designer Hacks. Once again, Designer Hacks is much easier, but is cheaper and affordable. In terms of platform-based subscriptions, we have Amber Books and we have Black Spectacles. Amber Books, I think, has 2.5 practice exams, or is it 3? Something like that. Black Spectacles has 3, or I think technically 3 or 4 practice exams. I think they have 3 individual practice exams and one where it's kind of like a shuffle between the other 3. And so I recommend using Black Spectacles quizzes and using their practice exam. Amber Books, once again, I would say was really good for helping me to understand overall concepts. Black Spectacles was kind of really straight to the point. It was like hard information. This is what you need to know for the exams. So whichever you choose, whether it's black spectacles or amber books, completely up to you. But the point is, get your hands on as many practice questions and practice tests as possible, and definitely supplement your reading if possible, or if you desire, with an online study program, like for example what we just listed, amber books, black spectacles, or maybe there's another platform which is really, really good. Now, of course, this is not an exhaustive list, and there are many great study materials that I haven't covered. I just probably barely scratched the surface. But I don't think you need 100 materials in order to be successful at this exam. I think being very selective with your materials is important, so you're not overwhelmed, so you're focused, so you have a plan and you know what to study, and you're not spending time chasing your tail and studying things that you may not necessarily need to know for the exams. So this is kind of my list of what I think are some of the best study materials and resources out there currently as of the recording of this video. And of course, if you have any materials that you want to share, please leave it in the comment section below. I also have a cool update once again. I am going to be launching a full study guide videos. I'm going to go through each of the exams and kind of share my notes. Not necessarily publish my notes online, but I am going to walk through my notes with each of you, and it's going to be completely free. So stay tuned for that. Those videos are going to be dropping very, very soon. And so in the meantime, let me know, have you passed a couple of exams, or are you in the middle of testing? Also, let me know about that in the comment section below. And until next time, keep studying, keep designing, and I'll see you all in the next video.